Joining us today, we have Luc Doucet and the Plunge Father. They run the podcast, The First Mint, which is one of the fastest growing basketball podcasts out there, now ranking in the top 10.
And without further ado, I'm going to bring our guests on the stream. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey guys.
Yeah, thanks.
It's going great. Well, it's going okay. I think both of us, both me and Plunge, lined up this morning to get one of the packs, those hot packs, and we both have come away empty-handed. But there's another one tonight, and we will gladly line up again tonight during our live show, and then again tomorrow morning during another pack drop. So we're okay. We're okay. I'll say we're okay in terms of Top Shot world.
Yeah, I was hoping to get one last night. Then I saw the delay, and then I tried again today, and same story, just delay. We'll get into that later on because I definitely want to hit on the popularity of NBA Top Shot. But first I want to get a little bit of background on NFTs and Top Shot. So I'm wondering, and whichever one of you wants to hop in first, can you explain to some of our audience, again, this is a stock market based audience, some know crypto, but what are NFTs?
Totally. How about I'll give you a quick high level what NFTs are, but I do think we have to get into Plunge's numbers, because if you got a stock market crowd, they are gonna love what's going on in NBA Top Shot. I'll tell you that much. So make sure you guys stick around for that part. So basically, NFT is a very ugly term. It stands for non-fungible token. Pretty much every term in blockchain has not been created for the consumer audience because it's all just weird technical things. So let's roll with it for now. NFTs. They are basically a digital token that is, I guess, yours through the security of the blockchain. So in the same way that you would own Bitcoin or Ethereum, and if you've looked into how that works in terms of, those, I guess, assets being verified across multiple nodes all over the world, and that it is in fact yours and the way it's encrypted and everything, an NFT is the same thing, but instead of being some kind of currency, it's an asset where some graphics or images or music or some kind of functionality are embedded into it and kind of locked in forever. So it's essentially like having like a digital painting, except you have it in your Ethereum wallet or in your, well, not your Bitcoin wallet. And in this case, in your Flow wallet, which NBA Top Shot is on a different blockchain called Flow, not on Ethereum, but most NFTs out there are on the Ethereum blockchain. And essentially they are assets that you own in your Ethereum wallet and that nobody can take from you the same way that, a normal asset would be the same thing. So it's something abstract to kind of wrap your head around if you've never really thought about it, but the NFT business is quite large. Top Shot is one that's kind of boomed in the last couple months, but NFTs have been around for a long time and have been trading for thousands, if not millions of dollars for quite a while. The NFT community was relatively small until recently, but it's grown a lot in the last 6 months. And if you follow the news, then you know that some of the bigger names, guys like Mark Cuban and Gary Vaynerchuk, are really getting interested and not just getting interested from an investment standpoint, but also from a larger cultural standpoint, saying that this may be the new thing that everybody starts to get into.
Perfect. So the turning to NBA Top Shot. So it's a highlight. The biggest misconception and question out there, which I know you guys have probably addressed before, is, why buy an NBA Top Shot versus just being able to, go watch this highlight online. So, where's the value, and what do you say to some of the naysayers out there with that?
Plunge, what do you think, man? I've been a stand of this for a long time, but you're newer, so you tell me, because you're so stoked now.
So I'm a little newer to this space. So I came into NBA Top Shot in the middle of January, right after, I should say. Jonathan Bales, who's a big DFS player, announced a big sale. They had bought a Ja Morant, I believe, for like $35,000. So this clip of Ja Morant in a dunk from his rookie season last year, which was when Top Shots became a thing. This NFT, they spent a lot of money with basically making the idea that they can that it will have like a long tail in terms of upward trajectory over time, that they felt that this as a consumer product would be a very safe asset for them to kind of experience long-term growth with. Not much unlike you might buy a car and expect it to appreciate in value over time. But when we come into this space as someone who's not into crypto, and frankly, I'm not into the stock market either, it doesn't take long for you, if you're on NBA Top Shot and sort of see how the marketplace dynamics work, it doesn't take much for you to get it.
Hey Pete, I'm gonna interject real quick. We're just having a little bit tough time hearing you. I don't think your audio is coming through the mic.
Okay.
So if you want to try to fix that real quick, we'll go back to Luke.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'll pick it up from there, and basically I'll kind of add my 2 cents to that as well. Is like, that's a really good point, and it's a really good skepticism of like, okay, well, I can just watch this video highlight on YouTube. What's the point? And I think what's really interesting that NBA Top Shot has done and what NFTs are doing is that they're adding a layer of, I call it the new layer of fandom that we didn't know existed. Essentially, it's an item that you didn't know you needed or wanted, but that now you do. So totally, if you want to watch a great LeBron James dunk or a Kevin Durant 3-pointer or some kind of Damian Lillard buzzer beater or whatever, you can totally just go watch it on YouTube. But what you can do now with Top Shot is, if you look at these, like, again, thinking about who's watching right now, if you look at these like a stock, right, you can, instead of just watching it on YouTube, you can invest in these moments. So what that does is it takes a conversation that, you know, Chris, you and I might have had offline. You and I might have debated, like, what's a better buzzer beater, Damian Lillard or Devin Booker? And you and I might argue, we might watch it and compare and be like, oh, well, you can see, we're going to do all this analysis. And there's no way to ever answer that. But now in NBA Top Shot, there's a marketplace that's going to tell you which one of those two it actually thinks is better and that it values more. So totally, can you go watch these on YouTube? Absolutely. But what you can do in Top Shot is you add this new layer to your enthusiasm for the sport, where the kind of the conversation you would have had with your buddies or your friends or whatever about what's better or what's worse or which player is good, which player is bad. Now you have a 24/7, 365 market that actively kind of decides that for you. So I'll give you an example where that can be great from an investment standpoint, is that if you have a player, you know, you watch your local team and there's a player who comes off the bench, he's a new guy, second year maybe, and you think that he might become the next like Pascal Siakam, right? And Pascal Siakam was kind of a bench player for a while, and now he's not an all-star this year, but he was an all-star last year. He's a really good player. If you have a hunch that a certain player can become really good, it's kind of like a stock where you're like, well, you know what? I'm picking this one. And I think this is, you know, same thing in stocks. You know, you guys always say, this will be the next Amazon. This will be the next Tesla, right? So in basketball, we say the same thing, right? You say like, well, Zion is going to be the next LeBron, or so-and-so unknown player might become the next Kawhi Leonard, right? And that's essentially how you can look at this market from an invested standpoint, is that, yes, of course, there'll always be the LeBron James and those go for the most, but you can also pick some random obscure player. And if you know basketball, or if you like basketball even a little bit, you can just place your bets there, right? And then when when that player has a huge game and everybody else wakes up to that player, the moment that you own, they're called moments, they're not cards, they're moments, that'll go up in value like crazy.
Yeah, you know, that's perfect explanation. So, you know, I'm late to the Top Shot game, or I guess not late, but later. But I want to know, so I heard you say, you know, you started in January, but can you guys tell me a little bit about, you know, what were the early days like before there was, you know, hundreds of thousands of people in line for these packs? You know, how much easier was it to get packs? How much easier, you know, was the marketplace? And, you know, did anyone, or I guess, did you guys anticipate this kind of growth for NBA Top Shot?
Pete, when did you join Plunge? When did you come in? What date was it?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, this is much better, much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I've got a weird audio setup, so I appreciate you bringing me back in. So
yeah, no problem.
There's two answers to this question. The first answer is for people, I call it pre-bails and post-bails, like time frame, because there was this massive spike of people that entered into the Top Shot marketplace in the middle of January. And I got in sort of on the beginning of that upslope, and that produced at that time what was the sort of largest per day transaction and marketplace transactional value in a single day. It was like the weekend of January 24th or something like that. So just 6 weeks ago, and it hit $7 million. in transactions on the marketplace over that time period. And right before that weekend, and part of the reason why there was so much action was they had a massive pack drop right at that time. And I was able to buy 5 base packs in that thing. And I got, 3 moments and 5 packs. And I had 15 moments that I then could do whatever with. Right. And even then, that was sort of the last of the good times as it related to being able to buy packs in mass. And for everybody else that was in much earlier than that, and Luke can speak to this, last season, while the NBA was in the bubble and they were in this closed beta and then an open beta that had a much smaller population of users, there were series and packs that just didn't even get sold. In fact, one of the sort of urban legends, or like one of the things that's sort of an insider info, behind the scenes type of thing, is the Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals, where they did special packs that had moments from players in those series. So Western Conference Finals was, of course, the Lakers playing the Nuggets, and the Eastern Conference Finals was Boston playing the Heat. And they had printed 1,000 packs of these things, or 999 packs. 999 moments per player times 9. I think it was something in like 8,000 or 8,900 packs per series, and they couldn't even sell them. Right? They sold a third of them or a half of them in each case, and they just were sitting on these packs because the timer ran out and there weren't enough people to buy the supply. And so now they're in a situation where, obviously demand has far outweighed and exceeded supply, and they're sitting on some of this stuff that they now have to burn because of the restrictions they had placed on it there. So they learned a lot of lessons in terms of availability of this type of stuff, and sort of there had the healthy balance between creating more supply so more people can participate and have a healthy marketplace where there's all tiers of price points for people to enter, but also not creating so much that the verifiable scarcity that the NFT concepts are built on, and that sort of that is a key component of their value or the value proposition of a particular moment or a particular NFT, with that they don't dilute that so much that nothing becomes valuable. So they have a very difficult tightrope to walk with that, and I think that's causing a lot of consternation in the community in some ways, who don't really understand those market dynamics really well because they're brand new to it. And all they know is, dang, it's really hard for me to get a pack and really hard for me to enter at a price point that I'm comfortable with the technology that I'm new to, that I don't understand particularly well, and that I'm not sure if is going to be around in however long. I'm bullish on it, but it's sort of a very quick ascension into the stratosphere in many ways.
Perfect. Luke, I want to get a little bit to the podcast. So, you guys see Top Shot kind of take off. What went into the decision to launch a podcast? And, did you ever think that, it was going to be this fast growing and, considered one of the top podcasts out there for Top Shot? I see you guys get shout outs from, the founder of Dapper Labs all the time. So, what has the success been like, and why launch the podcast?
Totally. So I've been tracking this project since September. I got in September, and through this year, as life changed for everybody, I had a few friends who'd been pushing me to get into blockchain for a while, but I come from the content marketing world, so there was no, I wasn't going to go out there and start coding any kind of Ethereum projects, but through the summer, I looked into what else had been going on in blockchain in the last couple of years since the last boom and as the new boom was starting. And I found the NFT space, and Top Shot was the only product for me, or the only project that was fully licensed by a major brand. And that's what kind of set it apart from everything else, is that it's actually licensed by the NBA. And now in the last month or two, the NBA has put a lot more weight behind it. At the end of 2020, just as the new season was starting and things were picking up, I was looking to do more in the space, and primarily to provide value to people in the NFT space. Again, as a content marketer, I noticed very quickly in the space that there was a lack of media. There's a lack of reactive media, right? There's a few sites that cover stuff, but there's so much going on. Blockchain moves so fast every day that there just wasn't nearly enough. At one point, Top Shot started adding thousands of people per day. And as that started to happen, I was like, well, we're going to need something. I was posting a couple statistics a day on my Twitter, and people were just slamming me with questions. And I was like, all right, well, that's a good indicator that maybe we need some kind of good form of media here. So, kind of overnight, I came up with the First Mint and launched the podcast, really kind of just hoping to inform and educate people. But, as Plunge was talking about, Top Shot has grown so quickly and grown in so many different ways. You've got basketball fans, you've got daily fantasy players, you've got collectors, you have the general public, people that haven't watched a basketball game in years that love this product, that are into it. And now you have actual basketball stars. Like there's about at least a dozen players who are actually in Top Shot, like literally buying and selling each other's moments, and which is amazing. So, and you've got all the, basketball community, ESPN reporters, everybody is in there talking about it. So now we've got so much traction that has really contributed to the success of the podcast. And I think also what we really love to do, we have 3 shows a week, and the third of which is tonight, is a live show starring Plunge Father. What we love to do is also kind of keep things simple, because even like he was saying, it's a new market. It's confusing. NFTs to begin with are not the easiest thing to wrap your head around. So as much as we like to focus on, hey, here's some really deep data market insight, like about 80% of the people in Top Shot, they're not quite ready for that. A lot of them are making emotional decisions. They just want to know, like, hey, should I be buying Jimmy Butler because I really like him? Or should I invest in a guy who's a bit of a bigger star than Jimmy Butler? There's a few that are bigger stars than Jimmy Butler, but there's a few, right? So people just need help with those kind of emotional decisions. And I think that's what's helped Top Shot take off, is that it brings people's emotions out the same way a basketball game does, right? Is that it's a little less it's very transactional, but it's a little less cold of, will this go up or will it go down? And it's a little bit more like, well, you know what? I actually just do like this player. So even if I bought it and went down a bit, that's okay, because I like him. Right. So First Mint has kind of encapsulated all that while trying to help people understand and educate them. And it's something that's sorely needed in the NFT space, is the education side and helping people learn. Even just kind of looking in the chat here, there's a lot of great questions. A lot of people are curious. And that's kind of like the longer term mission too at the First Mint, is as this industry grows, which it might be kind of messy for a couple of years, even as it has been for Top Shot with the growth, we're going to need great communicators in the space. And, we're just trying to add a little piece of that puzzle.
Yeah. And I'll add, that's why I reached out. That's why we have you guys on there. There's so many questions out there. NFTs are, very misunderstood. A lot of people have questions, want to know more about them. We'll turn back to Pete here. So, talking about your different packs and moments, can you share, I know there's probably, dozens, but what are some of your favorite moments that you've collected on NBA Top Shot?
So my favorite moment by far is, there's a LeBron James 3-pointer from Series 2. So for everybody that isn't familiar, the 2019 and 2020 season, so the bubble season that was last year for the NBA, was Series 1. And everything that was minted, all of these NFTs, these moments that were minted in that year for the NBA, are considered Series 1. So those are sort of the museum pieces, like they're the brand new stuff. Or excuse me, they were the first things. And they, as a result, are carrying a significant premium relative to things that have come out this season, similar size of mint or similar style of play or whatever those things are. But within Series 2, there are also some really cool plays from a superstar perspective. And one of them is a play from LeBron James where he is in a corner and shoots a 3-pointer. And before the ball even goes in the net, he turns around, looks at the bench, and just no-looks it. And then the bench erupts and it turns into this big thing. So one of the things that's really interesting about this space, and if you use the corollary of a playing card, right, or a baseball card, which is a very easy analogy for many people to draw, like the 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan is sort of the cream of the crop, right, for like rarity and scarcity for rookie cards within the physical cardboard market. But that picture isn't like anything special, right? It's cool, but you have no idea, no context for what's happening. And it could be any picture, but the thing that makes it rare is that it's Michael Jordan's rookie card. And I think what is going to happen, and it hasn't quite happened yet, but as more people come into the space, as more supply is minted, and as there are more and more ways to differentiate what things stand above others, I think the quality of the highlight is actually going to play a significant factor in stickiness and in terms of rarity, but also in terms of like, what do I want to have in my collection? And I think it's really important here. And I try and shout this from the rooftops everywhere that I can, that this is not just a stock market, right? This is these NFTs in the particular application of NBA Top Shot. There is and will continue to be more and more utility for these NFTs in various other mechanisms outside of just, let me buy this, hoard it in my smog dungeon and sit on it, right? There's all sorts of interesting applications that you can think about of, if I own and I can verify that I own this thing, I can then use that in a variety of different places. So if you think about a trading card game like Pokemon, which people might be familiar with, it wasn't just that the Charizard was rare that made it valuable. It was that it was rare and it was the most powerful card in the game that you played with those pieces and with those physical cards. And that is going to hold true as more and more application and utility for these moments come out. So they're building a hardcore application. It's a mobile game with a third party and I say they, NBA Top Shot is partnering with the third party to build a mobile application game that might be something like a daily fantasy sports site where you put your moments to use and utilize those in a game. And I think that, to be honest, where we're headed, that is going to be what brings far more people off the streets into this, rather than just the speculative investment of, I'd like to buy this thing for $100 and hope it's worth $200 a year from now. But I think what's going to contribute significantly to the valuation of what those things are is not just, is this scarce? Is it cool? But what can it do for me? And I think that's a really cool concept. And it's not just in the context of the game that you can see those types of applications play out, but there's all sorts of cool ideas that I've heard from people talking about this. Like, if I live in Madison, Wisconsin, so just about an hour and 15 minutes away from Milwaukee where the Bucks play. So if I own a Giannis Antetokounmpo, I can't even say his last name, or a Dante DiVincenzo or a Chris Middleton, right? Like I own 3 Bucks players. Can that be my entry into the game? Right? Or do I get a special giveaway when I show up and I show that thing and I support the community, right? I'm like showing fandom and I'm participating in the social economy of the creator, in this case, the NBA player or the star that this is built around. So it's a lot deeper than just, I'm buying this thing, hoping to sell it and, make a profit off of it. So that's sort of my high level thoughts on where this is headed.
Perfect. So what's your favorite Top Shot moment that you own?
You're asking me? Sorry,
Yep.
I did cut out there for a second. Yeah. I'm really tied to some of the ones that I first had, both from the player standpoint and also just from an emotional standpoint of being the first ones I collected. I'm very proud of, I opened a pack after the first round of the playoffs this past season. So in September, where I got a Luc Doucet, and he's the future of the league. And a lot of people think he's really great. Could be the MVP this year. It is his first and only playoff appearance in Top Shot and in the NBA. It's a game winner against the Clippers. And I got it in a pack that cost me $24. After it came out, it was one of the hotter moments. So it was going on the market for 70 or 80. And now I think it goes for maybe 20,000 because the game has grown so much, which is insane. But that's the reality, is that it's only one of 200. And for Luka Doncic, like, he's got moments now that are being minted, I think like one of 30,000, right? So it's like, it's grown so much that is quite now scarce. And especially compared to back then, we had maybe 800 people in the game and now there's, I don't know, 300,000, right? It's like, that's just that same level of scale. So that's a favorite of mine. And yeah, any of the other young guys, I've got a Zion Williamson where it's one of his first plays in the NBA. I think it's a second game where he just goes for this like world-defying block on a player where he like literally jumps 10 feet in the air and blocks it, and the ball goes like into the second deck of the stands. Like, just something you've never really seen in a basketball game, or you haven't seen in a basketball game in like 30 years, right? So yeah, I've got some emotional favorites like that for sure. And also as a Raptors fan, and not all Raptors fans love Vince Carter, but I still do. And they've got his final shot ever, which was during a game where it was the day they called it, that they postponed the league about almost exactly a year ago to the day where they postponed the season. And they were playing in that game and they were finishing the game, and everybody knew that the season was over and Vince was playing on the Hawks and they weren't going to make the playoffs. So everybody knew that suddenly that was going to be his last game ever, because he said he was going to retire at the end of the season. So they bring him in with 12 seconds left, to get in one last lick, and Trae Young gives him the ball and he shoots this, like, he nails this deep 3-pointer, just a perfect end to his career. And that will be an emotional favorite for years to come in Top Shot.
So following up, you said Luca, so I gotta ask, and maybe you're not the one to ask this because you own one of those moments, but we just saw his rookie card sell for $4.6 million, breaking a basketball card record. Do you think that a Top Shot moment, will ever exceed that sale in the future? When could that happen, and who could it be?
I think it really depends on adoption, right? And again, like we've had this massive surge right now. The NBA is very hot right now because this is the time of year where the NBA has a clear runway. There's no baseball, there's no football. It competes with hockey every night and golf on the weekends. So there's and tennis, right? So the NBA has this huge runway. It's the crown jewel event this weekend in the All-Star game, and then it's a bit of a quiet period until the playoffs. So right now, there's big sales being made. The biggest one ever is 208,000. And a lot of people are predicting that, yeah, there could be a sale of $1 million this year. They have some moments that are one of one, some of the first moments ever made that are not released. They're not out. So those will go to auction. So at auction, you could definitely see these crack $1 million. But again, it depends on that adoption, right? Like it depends. I think a lot of that is going to depend on what this product looks like over a 2-year period, right? Because right now there's a lot of hype. And there's a lot of, the team behind Top Shot, Dapper Labs, is working day and night to manage the growth, and it's challenging. So if they can get this to the point where they envision it, where there's, like Peter was saying, there's more functionality to the NFTs. There's supposed to be a game called Hardcourt where you can play with these moments against each other. So that's supposed to come as the game grows, and if they manage the growth properly, I think absolutely you could see that sale get eclipsed, but that's a big maybe because again, this thing only launched in July, right? And a lot of people, and even in your chat, people saying, might be like the next Beanie Babies or whatever. It's like, that's not the worst bet because we don't know again how big this will grow. Both of us are super bullish. Obviously we run a podcast about it. We're obsessed with it. So, there are a lot of other opinions on this out there. But I think the signs that I like in here is, again, like basketball players love it. The NBA is giving it its full support. So they don't, the NBA doesn't invest in projects that are only going to last a year or two. They invest in projects that last decades. So there's a lot of great stuff. And overall, this industry is going to grow. So it might take a while, but if things go well, absolutely, we will see that.
I think one extra point on top of that, I think this is the people that are involved in this in many cases are also involved in cryptocurrency trading and markets. So right now we're seeing sort of Bitcoin and Ethereum take a little bit of a dip, right? And pull back from that massive bull run that we were seeing before. I don't think that getting to 1 million and beyond, and even up into that 4 million, 5 million range for a very rare, very scarce moment would be that ridiculous if the Bitcoin and Ethereum trends continue forward. Like if we see, and I think one of the guests on our podcast last week, Anorak, who is involved in other NFT projects as well, made that point, which was, it's not right now, if Bitcoin is at 50 or whatever, 48 or whatever it is, if it goes to 100 or it goes to 200, we could very well see very big sales on the backs of those types of things in this space, especially for some of those like one of one type auction things. But if the Bitcoin and Ethereum trends are a little flatter, I think we're going to see that play out in our marketplace as well, because there's so much interplay between the cryptocurrency markets, asset reclassification and reallocation into NFTs purchased with cryptocurrency. So that's sort of my take on that as well.
Yeah, and I did just see a tweet today from Ken Golden, Golden Auctions, of course, a big sports card auction house, that they will have a Giannis NBA Top Shot numbered to 275. Up for auction soon. So, maybe we'll see some heavy price action there. So, we talk about some record breakers. You mentioned, 86 Fleer, Michael Jordan, of course, the rookie card everyone knows. So, Top Shot has a deal with the NBA for the licensing, NBA in them. So, it's pretty, we will see Top Shot someday from former players. What timeline do you guys think looks like? When will we see a Michael Jordan Top Shot, and what could that do to the market? Do we do separate paths of Michael Jordan? Do we do them all? How do they go about this in you guys' opinion? So
totally. So that's a great question, and now that you guys are thinking about that, you're really seeing into the larger potential of the product. And what this company does really well, Dapper Labs, is that they have figured out how to properly game the system so that you save the best for last, right? So the first thing, even, we've been on Clubhouse and a few chats with guys like Darren Ravel and some other, sport personalities. And even Ravel was complaining the other night. He's like, well, I want the Jordan game winner or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that'll come. If that's the first play ever on Top Shot, then Top Shot sucks. You know what I mean? It's like any other collectible game. It's like, no, you don't make the best possible one easily accessible to everybody. That doesn't make any sense. You save it. So right now it's just highlights from this year, last year. And they've done one retro pack called Run It Back, which is highlights from the 2013-2014 season. They've got another one coming that's sometime in the late 2000s that's going to feature Shaq, Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady, and then they're going to keep going backwards. But that's going to take time. It's like if you consider the greatest basketball moment of all time to be one of Jordan's like game winners, then that is the last one they will ever put out. Right? That you do that at the end and you kind of build. You don't launch that off the top and then go downwards from there. Right. So all that will come. But if you guys are thinking that way, you're locking into what the bigger potential is for any kind of brand, anybody with a huge store of intellectual property like the NBA or let's say Disney or the NFL or anybody else. You're now realizing what the potential is for NFTs. And I saw somebody write in the chat about 20 minutes ago. They asked if you could bet or if you can invest in songs on the Billboard Top 100. And that is exactly the kind of stuff that we might be able to do soon. The Kings of Leon just released an album as an NFT. That was big news this week. And another way to look at it is that, the proper term for all this is tokenization of intellectual property. So think again, what a brand like Disney might look at this like as a mega merchandise giant who literally like Mandalorian comes out and the next day you can buy a Baby Yoda backpack at every drugstore like that. Think about what Disney is going to do once they realize that people are spending, that there's an NBA market online of digital collectibles where people have spent over $300 million buying them, right? Think about what Disney, it's going to take a little while. It's not easy to develop this stuff. You can't just do it overnight. You have to do it properly, but think about what it's going to look like when Disney gets into that with their enormous vault of great intellectual property of Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, every Disney movie story that exists. There's so much you can do, right? And somebody else is asking, can you tie these to real life items? Of course, you could. There's so much. The sky's the limit. Like you could send people hoodies that once you scan it with your phone and you scan like a QR code or you just scan the front, it gives you an NFT for scanning that hoodie. You know what I mean? There's so many new things you could do like that. And Top Shot is kind of Top Shot's kind of building the 16-lane highway that everyone's going to need to get onto once it's time for those other brands to adopt. But right now, those other brands, they're watching from a distance, but watching, very intently as Top Shot goes through this messy growth process because they definitely want to follow and they want to do it right. So when that happens, whether it's music, Disney, whatever, it will be a major game changer for collectibles and just for how we use the internet.
So I know one of you talked about NBA players embracing Top Shot. That's been one of the big positive takeaways from me. You guys are willing to, hit this one at all, but what are some things you think that NBA Top Shot could do to improve the user experience?
You want me to take that one?
Yeah, go for it, Plunge.
So I think I mentioned this a little bit before, but the pack drop process has been a bit of a slog. And I think over the last few weeks, and they're improving significantly. And I even saw today when I logged in and signed up and got into the queue system for the pack drop that came out today, which was featuring all sorts of the All-Stars that are playing in the All-Star game this weekend. If you're not a basketball fan, the All-Star game is on Sunday. And previously you had to stay in line and you just sat there and it was, it would take you potentially hours to get through the process of, a 50 or 60,000 pack drop. You'd line up and then it'd spit you out into a random number, just like if you went to a grocery store and but instead of pulling a ticket that had a sequential number, once you got there, you just pulled something out of a bag of balls and you just got what you got. But they introduced like we'll email you when it's your turn thing today, which I thought was awesome. So, if you got within a lottery picket basically of the amount of packs that were going to be released, that, they would email you when it's your turn to purchase. And a lot of that processing we're not used to thinking like, oh, I have to wait to be able to purchase this thing, because so many of the transactional things that we do online are instantaneous, right? From Amazon to checking out on the grocery store if you're buying groceries, like that's an instantaneous process for most people because of the way that the transactions work with the credit card networks. Visa is really good at this, and they have built a massive infrastructure to support instantaneous payment and confirmation of payment. That's not possible on the blockchain, right? Or at least with Flow the way that it is right now. There has to be some level of transactional confirmation, which is why the blockchain exists and why in this particular application it exists in the way that it does, to verify scarcity and go through the computerized processes that confirm those transactions. But what that does is slow purchasing down. So I think they need to continue to improve that pack, either reservation or queuing process, so that newer folks that can come into this have a fair shake at getting these packs. It's not just a Supreme drop or a sneakers drop. If you're familiar with the SNKRS app, sneakers app, where you're like lining up and trying to get an exclusive shoe. So I think that's probably the most important thing that they can get right from a user experience perspective. And then the second thing that I think is really important that people hit on over and over and over again is, right now, the only way to see what your moments are valued is what is the lowest ask of that particular moment for anybody that's offering it for sale. And I think that there needs to be, and I think they're talking about it and they've confirmed that it's on their roadmap, but I have no idea when it's going to happen. There needs to be a bid system as well for, I will offer you X number of dollars for this thing. And then, when those two things meet, like whoever is selling something and whoever is offering to buy something, when those two things meet, a transaction happens, much like it does in Bitcoin, where you make an offer for something and then that's confirmed once somebody gets down that low. I think that will significantly increase and the happiness of people that are exchanging and trying to find the right price point for a particular asset. So those are the two big things for me. And obviously the third is withdrawal processes, but I don't want to get into that right now. It's a bit of a quagmire.
Luke, anything to add to their suggestions on ways to improve, or would you say the same there?
I'd say the same. And I'd say that growth is messy. Hyper growth is always going to be messy. I don't necessarily, I try and stay as unbiased as I can. I'm a huge supporter of the product. So, naturally I'm a huge bull for it, but at the same time, I don't necessarily agree with everything the organization's done or been communicated, but I don't blame them either. It's tough to go through this kind of hyper growth. And obviously when you build a great product, you hope and expect millions of people to adopt it, but I think it's come a lot faster than they expected. So naturally there will be some site functionality issues, and blockchain growth in general is messy as well. There's still a lot of issues. There's a lot of adoption, a lot of very excited people, but it still has a long way to go in terms of infrastructure, communication, design, as a space before we can really see a lot of normal people understand it and adopt it. NBA Top Shot's done kind of a magical thing where they've made it really easy for people to buy, where you can just swipe your credit card and buy these. But naturally that comes with a particular set of issues where the withdrawal isn't so straightforward and takes a little while, and they're still working on unlocking that for more people. So that's not great. And there are some site functionalities that don't work all the time, but again, that's hyper growth. Even in the early days of Facebook, there are times where it'd be down for days at a time. Obviously, we didn't put thousands of dollars into Facebook, so it didn't seem like that big of a deal. But a lot of great tech products, without a huge foundation behind them, will often be messy at growth, right? Like something like the iPhone worked pretty well off the bat, but Apple had 30 years of experience building products like that, or at least some other products to kind of sit on before launching it. And they'd at least been able to observe the growth of BlackBerry and the trouble of growth of BlackBerry before launching their own. So naturally for Top Shot, I think they've done an amazing job, and I think the road is still long from here, and there's a lot to improve on, which is actually what's most exciting, is that despite all these issues and uncertainties, there are still 200,000 people that show up at 9 a.m. To try and buy this $14 pack, and there'll be another 200,000 tonight, and another 200,000 tomorrow, and another 200,000 on Sunday. And those people keep coming back despite the issues. So once the issues are gone and everything's clicking, it's going to grow quite a lot. And like I was saying, I think with a lot of great tech innovations, and if you consider this something that might have a ripple effect over the next couple of years, this isn't necessarily like the Facebook of blockchain, but if that ever comes along, the person who's going to build the Facebook of blockchain is probably about 17 years old right now. And in a couple of years, once they acquire a few more tools and learn a bit more about the world, they're going to start to build stuff that we've never thought of yet. So and they're going to be inspired by products like this, the same way that someone like Zuckerberg was inspired by, I don't know, MySpace or Friendster, ICQ, all that stuff that came before, all that networking stuff that came before. You always have a ripple effect after. So Top Shot might not be the most perfect product, might not be the ultimate end winner in the NFT space after 20 years, but it is definitely going to inspire a whole new wave of people to get into the space, become great communicators, and also become great builders.
Awesome. I'm learning so much from this. I know our chat is as well. Originally we were going to try to do 30 minutes, but if you guys have time, a couple more questions, we can power through here. So
I've got to hop off.
I can say
I have to.
Okay, perfect.
I have to go
Thank you for your
interview.
time, Luke.
I have to do my own interview with. Well, I can't. Maybe I'll say it, but I have to go interview maybe a basketball player. No, I don't want to say yet. What if it doesn't happen? Anyways, I might be interviewing a basketball player in a couple minutes, so I gotta go. But well, Chris, thank you for having me on, and to the audience, like, you can follow us at the First Mint, and if you have any more questions about this kind of stuff, like, definitely send us a DM. And the best way to learn is honestly, like, listen to some of the past episodes of the podcast, because we do our best to kind of keep it pretty basic and entry level as well. So, and follow First Mint, follow the Plunge Father on Twitter as well. He puts out some really great data, and he's.
I've been trying to drop your Twitter handles there in the chat.
I've seen that. Yeah.
To keep up.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, just find us on Twitter and hit me up and hit up the Plunge Father and all the other guys in our network, because we do our best to kind of answer people's questions, because my biggest piece of advice is always that it's a lot to learn. So be patient with yourself, right? Is that you see a lot of people making a lot of money in Top Shot, and it's like, maybe you can do that too, or maybe you can just enjoy collecting as a basketball fan, but going in there and expecting to, make 1,000% in 2 hours, it's not realistic, right? You need to learn a lot more about the game. Same as a stock market, right? You might get lucky the first time, but you'll get burned the next 10 times. So for a new product like this, take your time, be patient, ask questions, ask the Plunge Father, and use the next 10 minutes to just mine him for his knowledge, because he's one of the smartest guys in the game.
Thank you,
all right, guys, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much.
Good luck on your interview.
All right. So, he mentioned, people making 1,000% or some expectations. So, this is normally a stock trading idea show. So now that we've got you here, let's pick that brain. What are some players that maybe you think people should look at on the Top Shot marketplace that, could go up in value? Again, I emphasize could, not will.
Yeah. This is not investment advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. All of the legal disclaimers, all of that fun stuff, because I'm not a financial advisor, nor do I don't have any of that accreditation. So please don't trade on this advice if you're not willing to lose it. But I think one of the things, and Luke sort of got at this a minute ago, is that, like, paying attention matters in Top Shot, and the market is incredibly volatile relative to new news and new interesting shiny things. So a really good example of this is that, and I wrote a Twitter post, like a big Twitter thread last week about it, where there are now NBA players that are sort of coming into Top Shot and being a visible vocal presence on Twitter, and then like on the following streams and so forth. And when those players come into Top Shot, they end up with their moments, the actual cards, they end up hitting a spike, like, pretty quickly. And most of the time that spike happens very, very fast, based on, like, within minutes of a tweet going out, right? Because people catch on to it, they retweet it. Then there's a tail of people running to the marketplace to try and purchase the lowest volume of those things. And then you see this, like, trading wall of, like, everything that was listed stacked up right on top of one another, to say, like, everything that got up to a certain point is just going to get gobbled up until more people realize that this player is now involved. And it might be in the course of like 2 hours that something like that happens. So I think right now, if you're in Top Shot now and you have an account, great. If you don't have an account right now, they're in the middle of a pack drop, like literally right this minute, and there will be one later tonight. And they disable account creation around pack drops to prevent some of the bot activity, which is a big concern for them. So we don't want Pete to create 20 burner accounts and bot the pack drop so that I get 20 shots at it. They're really trying to make it fair from a consumer experience perspective. So they do kind of tighten up restrictions around new account creation around those things. But if you do get in, right, there is stuff going on this weekend, right? There is the All-Star game going on this weekend. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the 26 players that are in the All-Star game, right? And obviously the blue chip, if we think about stock market, right, there are blue chips and then there are, risers and fallers and all these other things, right? And right now the focus is, and it should be, on blue chip, right? Like, who are these people that are in the All-Star game that are, they're not just popular, but they're also excellent at basketball, which both of those things matter a lot in this game, right? So LeBron James is sort of in a class all of his own, and it's, he's an outlier relative to everybody else. He's so much more expensive than everybody else because he has the best moments and all of these things. So if you sort of remove him from the equation, I think when you start to look at prices of perennial all-stars that are at the tail end of their career that then might not have many more moments minted in future years, so the supply of their moments is going to be relatively scarce compared to some of the younger guys over time, you start to see, like, relative to where, who's underpriced relative to people that have been a 12-time All-Star. And the person that pops out to me all the time is Chris Paul, right? Like, Chris Paul has been in a bunch of All-Star games forever and ever and ever. I think he's entered the league in like 2005. So we've got like 16 years and 13 or 14 All-Star games of Chris Paul. He's playing on a not great team right now in Phoenix with Devin Booker, who is also an All-Star. But he's someone that, other than, if you look at all the guys that have been in 10 plus All-Star games or 8 plus All-Star games, you get James Harden, you get LeBron James, you get some of these guys like him, but he's sort of on the lower end of that tier in terms of pricing in the marketplace. So it's like, okay, could he get a pop, right, from being in the All-Star game and focus on him? If he decides to retire after this year, and you're looking not just in the short term, but in the medium or longer term of this collectible space of, like, what happens if Chris Paul hangs him up at the end of the year? Much like the Vince Carter moment that Luke was mentioning earlier, where it has inherent value because it's a cool moment and it's a special thing, but like, there's not going to be any more Vince Carter moments, or if they are, it's going to be from previous seasons. This is his last. So there's going to be some of those elements as well that, like, as players reach the ends of their careers, where are opportunities that you can leverage that information about basketball for these types of things. So if you're thinking about not just blue chip guys, but some of the potential risers and fallers, like someone like Trevor Ariza, it sticks out to me, right? He's got a single moment in Series 1 that is probably in the like $100-ish range, maybe 150. I don't know what it is offhand. I can actually look it up in a minute. But with that, like, is that going to be his last moment? So that's an angle to sort of play this out. Right now, his base set one is worth, the lowest ask for it is $109. And there's only 3,345 of those minted. So there will only ever be 3,345 Trevor Arizas from there. I don't know if he's going to get a new moment in S2. Who knows if he's going to play next year? But will that, and you sort of have to guess, and you have to make bets on this stuff, but like, will that matter? Will people know that this person is retired, and will they care? But generally speaking, the way that I'm sort of approaching it is trying to take advantage of information that I know that not everybody of the 300,000 people that are in Top Shot might not, because I'm plugged in or I pay attention or whatever those things are. In the same way, I was listening to your show just before this, mining information about Leslie Pool Supplies and a shortage in the manufacturing of chlorine and some of those things that inform how you approach making a buy on a product that the general public, Joe public, might not know yet. Like, it's public information. It's not secret or proprietary in any way, shape, or form, but you're making informed analyses on information that you have access to that everybody else does, but you're making thought process of, okay, that means this. Or the shortage of US steel, I think was the other example before this. There's going to be things like that as well that will affect the market in a similar way. But it's far more reactionary perhaps than a traditional stock market ticker relative to information dropping and so forth. So it's weird. It's fun to get in there, and I think the marketplace buying and selling is probably my favorite thing about the whole thing, about NBA Top Shot as a whole, because it's a game and it's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I know. I've been exploring the marketplace, trying to find people, with maybe only one moment out there, people with their first moment in Series 2, so maybe it's a little bit cheaper than those Series 1 drops. So we do have another show coming up. So before we wrap, let's bring producer Aaron back on. I believe he's got a question for you. What do you got, Aaron? Are you learning a lot about NBA Top Shot here?
How's it going? Yeah, I have been. I've just been listening in and learning. It was something, a question popped up in my head kind of when something that Luke was talking about earlier, more about kind of like the investing side of it. And that's why I was just relating it in my head to kind of like investing, stock markets and stuff. So what it sounds like is if you have a guy who's, not in that top class of LeBron James, Steph Curry, but, a solid basketball player. I'm from St. Louis, so I'm thinking like Jason Tatum, Bradley Beal, something like that. Say someone has like kind of a down year or something like that, or maybe not even a down year, but maybe they're just not playing well for a month, or maybe they're hurt and not playing. And then you get in there and get some of their moments, and then all of a sudden they start playing well. It can be just like a stock, where if a stock's not doing well, whatever.
Exactly. And another good example, if anybody's in here, there is a rookie. His name is Killian Hayes. He plays for the Detroit Pistons. There are 4,000 of his moments that are minted. He was injured January 7th and has only played 7 games in 2021, right? Or 2020 and 2021. He's coming back soon. It was a hip injury. They don't think it's bad, but he's very good. And relative to other rookies in the marketplace, so you can kind of cross-section apples to apples, other rookies like LaMelo Ball or James Wiseman or Anthony Edwards, right? He's very depressed relative to that because he hasn't played. And there isn't much film on him, or there's not much hype around him because he's only had 7 games. So if you're making a speculative investment potentially of what could future performance look like, does he have staying power to be an all-star in the league potentially next year or the years beyond? If you're making those sort of decisions based on timetables later, certainly something that you could look at. But definitely look at AD is another example. Anthony Davis is injured right now. And sort of prices more generally are dipping relative to this hype cycle that we were seeing. But, will he get some love from the All-Star game, even though he's sitting out? Will he get some love once he comes back? I think yes. But, it's all a game. And I think it will be tied very specifically towards like overall growth of the user base and how people who are coming into Top Shot will perceive the value of something, right? So as you're coming in and you're making those choices, or you're plugging in those search terms, like that's a very common thing to then frame your reference of what might have value down the line when 100,000 more people that are similar to you have the same thought process, right? When you came in, you probably looked at LeBron James first, or, insert name of really star player that you're interested in from your region or whatever. That's the same thought process that everybody goes through. So there is some value in that to look at for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That it makes it makes almost like too much sense that if a guy's not playing, for a little bit, that all attention might not be on him. So you can go in and scoop up a card or a moment for a little bit lower, and then next thing you know, when he comes back and is playing well or playing better than he was at the time, then that would go up a little bit.
Yeah, that was a great point, Aaron. The injuries, and Benzinga is a Detroit-based company. You say a Detroit Pistons name, and I'm sure people in the chat right now are going to look up those prices to at least give a shot at that Hayes card. So that's going to wrap up today. Pete, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. To Luke as well, to kind of explain NFTs, NBA Top Shot to our audience. Definitely, an area we want to grow with our coverage with crypto and NFTs. So, thank you for your day, and hopefully we can bring you both back on again.
Yeah, that sounds good. And next time I'll try and have better audio and internet. I live out in the country. I have like 12 megabytes download and like 2 megabits upload. So I'm working on trying to get something situated that's better than what I have now. But growing pains for sure in the Plunge Father household for figuring out how to stream.
No problem. Yeah, next time maybe I'll have some packs saved up too, and we can open them live on stream. I know you guys do that a lot, so
it's super
I'm looking forward to getting some new packs, hopefully over today or tomorrow. So thank you again for joining us on the show.
It was a pleasure to be here.